Okay, good morning. We're here for our weekly Marion County Board of Commissioners meeting. It's Wednesday, February 17th, 2021. It's 9 a.m. We're here in the Senator Hearing Room at 555 Court Street Northeast. And as always, we start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I kind of, before we get started, I just want to take a moment, maybe just a moment of silence, and if you want to pray or whatever, for those people who have been stricken and hurt without power, some without food and ability to get to where they need to go. And just pray for our strength and wisdom as we continue to go through this story. So let's just take a moment of silence, if you would. Thank you. So for public comment this morning, we have somebody signed up, which we're always glad to hear from people from the public. Valerie Gear, if you're here, if you could come over and sit off to the side and introduce yourself for the record, and welcome to the Marion County Board of Commissioners meeting this morning.
Good morning,
And
Commissioners.
Pull that microphone really close to you. That
Yes.
one. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I greet you with a smile from beneath this mask this morning. And I would like to introduce myself to you. My name is Valerie Gear. I live here in Salem. And I am the co-leader of Hope Connection, which is a support group for family members who have mentally ill loved ones. I am also the sister and legal guardian of an adult male brother who has schizoaffective disorder quite severely and has had this mental illness for over 20 years. My brother's name is Brian, and he lives here in Salem. I'm here to voice my support for any and all efforts for supported housing for adults with mental illness. And I'm not just here to voice my support for that, but to raise a critical issue with regards to those individuals actually accessing that housing. And let me explain. I say this not to sound prideful or braggadocious, but to come to you from the realities of caring for my brother here in Salem for 3 years. And it is me, and me alone, who is keeping that man from being unhoused. It is nothing within our system and within Marion County Adult Behavioral Health that is keeping him from being unhoused. He does not have insight into his illness. He is not cooperative when it comes to his care. He is disabled federally, and the only income he has is disability. He becomes violent, he's volatile, he's agitated. The police are called to his home multiple times. He has been civilly committed once. We've had multiple failed civil commitment attempts. I have attempted to place him in adult foster care for his safety, and because it's becoming too much for me to house him. He lives in a condo that my husband and I own. Recently, a spot became available at Horizon House, which is a supported house on the property of the state hospital for individuals who need 24-hour support and care. Because he is not compliant, lacks insight, and is severely mentally ill, he was not able to say, yes, I want to go here. And because of his volatility and our inability to get him hospitalized and stabilized, despite me being his legal guardian, he was rejected from that housing opportunity. And my husband and I can no longer house him due to his escalating violence and destruction of the property. There's currently a warrant out for his arrest due to his domestic violent assault against our other sister. And I recently pressed charges for another assault that he had against me in Winco on January 4th. So what I would like to say is that even if there are more places that exist for individuals like my brother, I think we need to carefully think through how those individuals who are the most vulnerable and needy and often are not compliant in their own care because of their illness, they lack the ability to make that decision. And that's why someone like my brother has a guardian like me. But even with that legal access, I am finding in Marion County, I am actually unable to get him to appropriate housing. And he is a risk to himself, he is a risk to his neighbors, he is a risk to his caregivers. He actually even has an ACT team from Marion County Adult Behavioral Health. There are support services in place, but the critical step to get an individual like him into a home that's appropriate and commensurate to his mental illness is a barrier that I have a difficult time envisioning happening without serious changes to our system. And finally, I would like to say that I will quote Mujerista scholar Ada Maria Esasi Diaz, who has said, "We need to first name and denounce the systems which marginalize and oppress, and then announce a new reality and a new vision that we might work toward for these individuals." And I would like to suggest, I've already named and denounced some of those systems, and believe me, I could be here for 2 hours with detailed stories that would be horrible. But I would like to announce a vision. When people ask me, what is it that you would like for your brother? I recall back to a time I grew up in Sequim, Washington, and when I was 14 years old, I got my first real job, apart from babysitting, at a retirement center for aging individuals. And this is an analogy to my vision for what my brother would have. These individuals had rooms, they had a common dining room, there was 24-hour support services. There would never be a scenario in which an aged individual could walk out the front doors and go wander in their nightgown or with pocket money to go purchase drugs. There are supports and protections in place because these individuals are vulnerable, many of them suffering from things like dementia. I'm asking for a similar level of care for people like my brother. He should not be able to walk out. He is disabled. He is actually disabled due to the severity of his mental illness. And because of our laws here in Oregon about human will related to people like him, it ties our hands on how we can protect them. And I think this is a mistake, and one that really needs to be addressed, particularly when it's not just me, but it's 20 years of history of homelessness, trauma, drug addiction, jail, multiple service providers from Washington and Oregon saying he needs the highest level of care. The court system ordering him to hospitalization at times. The public defender's office providing an assessment from a psychologist saying he is unable to make decisions about himself. Everyone agrees. Every person agrees except Brian. And the reason he cannot agree is because of his illness. And so that's the issue I'd like to bring forward, and I thank you very much for hearing my comments. And I would like to also, for the record, thank Senator Deb Patterson, who during her campaign called to check on our family like she did so many, and after hearing my concerns about my brother, offered me her personal cell phone number, which I just recently accessed because of the critical need for my brother and to not know what to do. And she actually told me about this group and recommended I come here to make public comment. So I would like to further avail myself for any task forces, think groups, problem-solving organizations, or opportunities. I am not a complainer. I'm an advocate and a hard worker. And I am a doctor of intercultural studies who is accustomed to taking marginalized populations and viewing them through an interdisciplinary lens for their best interest. So thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Mrs. Geer, for being here and for your service to your brother and to our community. I just want to say thank you for that. I think, and I'm not obviously an expert, Sydney, who is our director, happens to be sitting in the audience today. I'm sure she's going to get your contact, if she doesn't already have your contact information. and I'll say this, I was in the legislature for 9.5 years before I came here. And I think you mentioned Oregon laws tie our hands in a lot of this, and there's been a lot of court cases, a lot of laws that have changed the way we, I guess, have to deal with certain situations, and I would love to have you connect up with Sydney. And we have really good relationships with certain lawmakers, including Senator Deb Patterson, who just recently was elected, Raquel Moore Green, who serves on some, if you don't know Raquel, I think you probably, she may be your representative based on your address in Southeast Salem. She's on some committees over there. So I think maybe we could find out what your situation is and how it relates to the laws and what we can and can't do here in Marion County. And I'd be interested, I know we all would be interested in knowing what is that hole that's missing. Certainly your testimony and your brother's life is very valued to us. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
I sympathize. If you paid any attention to the campaign I ran last year, I stated several times that my own mother was somebody who experienced severe mental health issues, and Marion County was a huge barrier for us. So I'm really grateful that you came here today. As a youth growing up, I didn't have a voice to be able to stand forward like you are right now, and I think it's critically important, not just for Brian, but for your family. And I'd be glad to work with you on overcoming those barriers to provide access to peace of mind and a healthy lifestyle for Brian. So I will be calling you.
Thank you.
I think we're all have the same mind on this, and I do want to thank you for your service to your family. And please do connect with Sydney. I think one of the things that I've learned as a commissioner here is there are laws that maybe if I were a legislator I would vote differently on, or I wouldn't agree with. That's not really something that we have the power to change. But what I have seen with our staff is that they're really good at taking bad situations and sort of figuring out how to navigate them. And often it works through this process that you're going through right now. And I know you mentioned that you've had some bad experiences with different programs in the county. And one of the things that I've seen is sometimes that happens just because of the nature of the bureaucracy. And then when someone brings an issue like this to us, we can work with our department heads and our staff and sort of say, okay, this is what the statute says, or this is what the rules do, this is how we have been interpreting it, and it hasn't really been working for the people we serve. Is there a way that we can be creative about this? And I've found more often than not, our staff is really good about figuring out a way to make stuff work for the people we serve. So I hope you can connect with Sydney, I hope you connect with us, and let's just run this thing down and see how we can find a solution for you and your family. Because I'm pretty sure that one can be found, I just don't know what it is right now.
Thank you. I appreciate the optimism and connection.
Right. Thanks for coming forward. Okay, we have nobody else signed up for public comment. We'll go into our weekly COVID-19 update, and Katrina Rothenberger is here with a special guest this morning. I'm sure she wants to be on TV.
She's now entertained. I can tell that the mom situation that was occurring over there a second ago, so let's pretend this isn't happening.
Katrina's got this thing dialed. Not only is she taking care of the county, she's also taking care of her family at the same time.
Good morning. I'm Katrina Rothenberger, and I did bring my 4.5-year-old today because her preschool is without power, so she gets to come with mom to work, and she picked out her work outfit last night, and she's a little bored right now, but she'll be making pictures for all my work friends later, so.
She's a great addition to the team.
What's your daughter's name, Katrina?
Her name's Eleanor.
Eleanor?
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Eleanor. Glad to have you with us.
I just wonder if you recognize that you both kind of match. Was that planned?
We tried. She actually picked out my outfit too.
Fantastic. We know she has a designer career ahead of her.
Yes.
All right, welcome.
Well, thank you. So today I'm here to talk about our COVID-19 response and update. And first, I just wanted to acknowledge that Some of the data that we have today is a little outdated because we've been busy with responding to the ice storm. So we'll hopefully get updated vaccination numbers next week, but we do have some good news to share with where we're at with cases. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we've had 18,030 cases. Our percent positivity rate has gone down to 9.2%, but that has been since the beginning of the pandemic. And 278 people have died. Roughly 50,000 people have been vaccinated in Marion County, which is a number I reported last week. And about 2/3 of those folks are fully vaccinated now. Currently, there are 30 Marion County residents in the hospital with COVID, and last week we reported 29. For Region 2, which includes Marion, Polk, Yamhill, Lynn, Benton, and Lincoln, there are 116 adult non-ICU beds available out of 787, and 34 adult ICU beds available out of 126. And there are 23 individuals hospitalized with COVID in Region 2, which is down from 35 last week. And this is as of yesterday. So, and the numbers I reported today for Marion County residents being 30. So there's a little lag in the data there. For the time period January 31st through February 13th, which is the time period I'll be talking about today, we saw a 25% decrease in cases during that 2-week period compared to the 2-week period prior. And we've actually been seeing a steady decrease since the beginning of December in the number of cases and hospitalizations. The bulk of our cases are still coming from Kaiser, Central Salem, Northeast Salem zip codes, and Northern Marion County. The ice storm has affected some of the reporting and lab processing timelines, so we anticipate that the next few days when they get caught up, the numbers might look a little bit weird in terms of new cases per day. Our test positivity rate has also decreased during this time period to 6%. So for that time period, January 31st through February 13th, this is a time period that the Oregon Health Authority is looking at to determine whether or not we'll be moving down to a different risk level. During this period, there were 752 COVID cases, and 89 of those were adults in custody.
Excuse me, what was the number again?
752 cases.
And 89 were,
Adults in custody.
Is that DOC?
Of those 752.
is that DOC or ours combined? Is that DOC and Marion County or just DOC?
I believe it's just Department of Corrections.
That matters. Thank you.
So when the Oregon Health Authority looks at determining our risk level, they want to make sure that we're under 200 cases per 100,000. And removing the adults in custody would drop us down to that lower risk level. So with the 752 cases, that would be 216.2 per 100,000. However, when removing the 89 adults in custody, that drops us down to 190.6 per 200,000. And the number that we want to stay under for the 2-week period is 695. And so with this data, we're in a warning week or a week 1 right now. And that prepares counties for the potential to move into a different risk category. And that determination would be made next week. Next week is considered the movement week.
Katrina, so next week is the movement week. Your concern, though, is because labs are lacking, we may see a spike? Because right now, if that 190.6 holds, we could potentially move down a notch, correct?
Yeah, I think that even with
Because that was before, the 13th was before the ice storm.
Right, right. And that 1-week period, since we're only looking at a 2-week period, I believe there's only 234 cases. So even with the
That
lab
was even better. Okay.
processing more, getting caught up, I think we would still be in good shape for next week.
Which would allow our restaurants to open up.
That's correct. So we would move from the extreme risk category to high risk. And our percent positivity rate needs to be under 10%, and it is at 6%.
Have you ever reported such good news? In the last year?
I don't think so.
But we're not celebrating, right? It's really good progress, but it's like,
Well, I think it's important. I think what folks struggle to understand, because I feel like I've berated Katrina and Ryan trying to really understand and absorb this information because it is so critical. That's like the lives of our businesses are hanging on these percentage
these
points.
numbers.
And what I want to stress is that we need to be under 10%, but we're at 6%. And we've been declining since the beginning of December. So even though we have these arbitrary dates and arbitrary numbers that are forced upon us by the state, the healthy part of our community is that the COVID numbers are decreasing, which is really good for our citizens overall. And we just need people to keep doing the right things, which is wearing your masks, washing your hands, maintaining social distance, and just being really responsible. Because we'd really like to go back to what we knew before March of 2020, before the end of this year. So keep working on it, folks. I like the percentage number. Good job. Thanks for helping me understand it.
Yeah, no problem. I have some other.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Shots, that thing.
In vaccine news, Marion County as a whole will be receiving 7,200 doses this week. 5,000 of those will be going to Salem Health for the fairgrounds operation, 500 to Yakima Valley Farm Workers, and 1,700 to Marion County Health and Human Services to be allocated throughout our community for those over the age of 75. Any additional folks in the Phase 1A, the healthcare workers, folks with who are receiving in-home supports, and educators. We got some interesting information from OHA on who the fairgrounds is immunizing, and about 63% of the people who have gotten a shot at the fairgrounds were from Marion County, 9.5% were from Polk County, 6.6% from Clackamas, 6.85% from Multnomah, 6% from Washington County, 2.3% Lynn County, and 1.7% Yamhill, and 1.7% Lane County. So the Oregon Fairgrounds has been a tremendous resource for our entire region. And we'll continue to receive that allocation from Oregon Health Authority to immunize folks in our region. And they've defined our region as a radius of like 50 to 100 miles around that spot. So now with more regional resources available, receiving those direct allocations, we think more people from Marion, Polk, Yamhill, and the surrounding counties will have access to the fairgrounds, and those folks in the metro region will most likely go to the convention center. And well, we're getting vaccine out to our community partners, Salem Health, Santiam, Legacy, Salud, Yakima Valley Farm Workers, Woodburn Ambulance. They've all been playing a huge part in getting vaccine out into our community. We have been focusing on the North Marion County to address first, since they've been hardest hit by the pandemic since the beginning. And we had a very successful vaccine event last week, and we were planning to do that weekly. This week we need to take a break to catch our breath and get caught up after the ice storm. Woodburn Ambulance has been a little overworked over the past several days with responding to the needs of their community, the immediate needs. So we'll get back on track to start those back up when they have capacity, hopefully next week. They're very eager and energetic to get going, and it's been a tremendous resource for that community. So the demand is still higher than the supply. Some pharmacies do have the vaccine now. I saw that Safeway was giving vaccine last week. They did report to us on Friday that a number of their locations have given between 20 and 100 vaccines. So check your local Safeway, check in with the Salem, Santiam, Legacy. If you are a member at Salud, check in with them to see when you could potentially schedule an appointment if you're eligible to receive a vaccine right now. And then we do want people to check with their healthcare providers before getting a vaccine. Taking medication right before you get the vaccine isn't necessarily recommended. We want your body to have that immune response to the vaccine. A fever, body aches, and just mild symptoms are normal, and that's your body doing its job to make those antibodies to protect you against COVID in the future. Some people may experience an allergic reaction, but that's pretty rare. If you do have a reaction, it's really important that you call your healthcare provider and report it to the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. We do need to track these adverse reactions because this is a vaccine that has emergency use authorization, and we want to make sure that we can understand who should be getting the vaccine and who may need to take a little bit more precautions or a different one in the future. And then once you receive your second dose, 2 weeks after that second dose, you're considered fully vaccinated, and you won't need to quarantine after exposure to someone who has a confirmed case of COVID. However, the CDC is still refining what that looks like, those time periods. We still want people to monitor their symptoms. You know, if you do get sick, it's still a good idea to stay home and limit your exposure to others. We're also getting questions around if you can still spread the virus to others. And that is still something that transmission is still being studied. Now that we have widespread rollout throughout the United States, we know it's effective at preventing illness in those receiving the vaccine, but viral transmission, we're still determining what the effectiveness of the vaccine is there. And it is, like Commissioner Bethel mentioned, still super important to continue wearing a mask and socially distancing even after getting the vaccine until we get that herd immunity, which is about 70% of our population immunized. However, we don't have a vaccine for kids yet, so that is a big chunk of our population that will not be eligible for the vaccine right away. So that's why wearing those masks are still really important. Washing hands, socially distancing. So, and then with the ice storm, this is the third emergency I think public health and this whole county has
3
responded
emergencies going
to.
on at once, yes.
It's just incredible the amount of perseverance that everyone in Marion County has. It's really humbling, and I'm just so proud to work here. I'm so proud of our staff and all the people who have responded to this emergency, and I just think it's a really great place to be, even though we're going through some really difficult times, and want to thank you all too for your support and support of our Marion County staff and residents.
So I'm going to ask Commissioner Bethel to share, but her and I, we got a chance to see this. My dad, who's 88 years old and drives Uber, by the way, so I always want to give him a plug. If you get picked up in Salem by a guy with a beard who looks really young for an 88-year-old, he's a great driver. He actually got to sign up for that Woodburn clinic, and we got to go up, and he was there and got some pictures with him when he got his shots. But I'll let Commissioner Bethel share how great that was. I think people need to know.
I think,
And the things you learned and we learned at that thing.
yeah, so in full disclosure, we completely ambushed the team up there, which is something I appreciate doing. When people are doing anything in the community, I like to see it firsthand. And when we arrived, it was at Woodburn High School, and it was last Thursday. And if you're familiar with Woodburn, you know you have to go up the overpass to come into the main entrance, and not the sides. Like, I don't know what the main road is there, but anyway, I did that, and then made an illegal U-turn, full disclosure, because the line.
Okay, you don't have to admit your guilt.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. The line was all the way out on the main road, and it moved so fast. I mean, there was probably 50 or 60 cars in line when I saw it, drove quickly back around, and the car that I had interact with initially was already moving to the front by the time I went back down around, parked, and walked up to the front. Woodburn Ambulance and their team, I think it's Metro West that was supporting them. There was probably 50 people out there, easily, workers doing check-ins. It moved so fast. They were doing a vaccination a minute with comprehensive questions. They were interacted with 4 times before they even made it to a paramedic that was providing the shot. They had paramedics in tents pre-drawing the vaccine and then bringing it out to EMTs who were administering it. And I can't tell you how impressed I was with the organization. It's almost as if they'd done it before, which it turns out they have done this with testing before. So they just replicated a testing scenario for vaccinations. And I think I probably talked to a dozen or so folks that were waiting in line, and they were all elated. Everybody was just over the moon for the fact that they were getting it. There was no challenges for folks who had ambulatory issues because they didn't have to get out of their vehicle, which was significant for a lot of the folks in line. The care providers that were bringing the elderly who didn't drive really appreciated just the simple nature of what occurred. And they had it so refined that if you had any reaction before to anything, they would mark your window with a 15-minute wait time or a 30-minute wait time. And then they had 2 different lanes where you could wait, because you have to wait after receiving the vaccination in case of adverse reactions. And they had a system set up that if you had any issues or felt uncomfortable, you just honk your horn and a team of providers would come over to your vehicle and tend to you right away. I came back, I was, these poor guys, I was so excited. I was like, let's keep doing this. And I was thrilled to hear that Woodburn Ambulance wanted to keep doing it. Of course, now we have an ice storm to tend to, but there was also a video. Did you see the video that came out? I don't know who sent us that, but she's a healthcare provider who was bringing her mom, and she raved about this drive-through clinic. And healthcare providers know the challenges that others are facing through the vaccination of this process, and to receive that kind of feedback was really great. So, I mean, I have a ton of notes, but at the top of it with an exclamation point was just to say thank you for doing that. And thank you to Woodburn Ambulance and folks in Woodburn who made it happen, and Woodburn High School who gave up their property.
And Marion, who's been, community partners up there that have been organizing it. And, you said all these people were in their cars, they stayed nice and warm. The people who were doing the vaccine, I mean, I was out there for like a half hour, and it was freezing cold, and they were all bundled up doing it. So great service that was. And I knew you wanted to share that too.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think it's a good reminder, we have all these cases coming down, but it's not accidental. It's
Right.
because of the work of the team getting the vaccine out to our population, and we've really been a leader in the state when it comes to rolling that out. I think we're over 15% of our population is now vaccinated. And I just think it's important to remember that as we talk about reopening and this sort of thing is one of the things that's been hampering us this whole time is we are the home of so many of the prisons, and they've had huge outbreaks, and that's way down our numbers. But we're also the home of this great team that's, been some of the fastest in the state as far as responding to this crisis. So it's a credit to you, Katrina, and your team, and thanks for all your work. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I do have a question. So we've heard a ton over the last year about contact tracers, and I think we all feel like we are friends with them if they've called us or if we've been exposed because they literally become part of your life. For folks that have received the vaccine, and how does the health department and those contact tracers know that? And does that impact potential positive cases if it's determined that a potentially exposed individual has received the full vaccine?
So we do ask about vaccine status. I'm not sure if the data system has been updated to include that information. I want to say it has not, because that's been something that we've been asking for, and it's been the data system is something I've complained about a few times. So we do ask about vaccination status for the contacts, and if they have been fully vaccinated, then they're not required to quarantine.
Okay, and just to be clear, the data system is not ours, it belongs to the state, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
So, as long as, before we get into our actual business, in addition, yesterday, is Eleanor want to say something?
Eleanor wants to talk,
Does
I'm
Eleanor,
sure of it.
does Eleanor want to say something?
Would you like to stop talking to the microphone?
Oh,
Would you like to tell us how much you love your mommy?
nope.
Okay. So, Yesterday, I got to, I want to thank both of you for allowing me to escape when we still were doing business, and I got to tour with one of our sergeants throughout the North Marion County and visit the cities of Aurora, Donald, St. Paul, Hubbard, Woodburn, Silverton, and Jervis. And so complimentary of how our Public Works Department, our Emergency Management Operations Center, which I know you were in for 48 hours, and you were on the ground doing stuff, and I was just on the phone a lot. But it was very complimentary of our health department and all the team. And I want to point out, this is just one example of how people helped each other. I was in Aurora, and I think you heard on the news, they were out of water, and it was on Portland News. They got a generator from Sheraton, which isn't even in Marion County. They got a generator from, I believe from Canby. No, Happy Valley, right? Generator from Happy Valley, from Sheridan, and Woodburn was bringing one up yesterday to get their sewer system because their sewer system was starting to overflow. And Aurora I sat there with the Public Works Department, the chief, the fire chief, Bill Krepp, who's their ex-mayor, who's a volunteer citizen, and several other people, and they just shared about how they worked together and the communities came around them to solve some of their critical infrastructure issues. And that story was repeated in all kinds of places. Obviously, they're all still without power. We knew as of yesterday we had, 55,000 customers on PGE alone, about 5,000 on Pacific Power, and 400 or 500 on CPI, Consumer Power. So we still have 60,000 customers without power as of yesterday, and I'm sure as we drove around, we had to take several different routes to even get like from Donald to St. Paul, because it was like the movie Twister or something like that, where you literally saw the top of a telephone pole with a transformer on it just ripped, total, and wires across these farm roads. It was really amazing, and I know that they're out there working, they said 18-hour shifts with over 120 crews. So just asking those that are being patient, those that are watching right now, to get power back, be patient. But the bottom line is this is the third emergency that we've had in the last 12 months, COVID, the wildfires, and now this. And I want to go back even a little bit further with the Salem water supply. And we have got to, when we get through this, encourage people to have water on hand, to have their go bags in their cars. I thought, well, what could you do to prepare for a wildfire? Well, you could have a go bag, you could have water, you could have all those things in your car, because you might have to go someplace, as I did when I escaped, and get stuck someplace. But I think there's some real important things, but you could see how citizens just continue to come together. As Katrina said, it's a great place to live and work. So congratulations to all our volunteers, as we talked about yesterday, and to our frontline people, including health department and first responders and public works. So why don't we go into our consent calendar and get some business done?
All right, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve our consent agenda in it. Under Board of Commissioners, approve the incoming funds agreement with the United States Department of Treasury in the amount of $10,437,591 to provide emergency rental assistance to the citizens of Marion County through December 31st, 2021. Ratify the February 13th, 2021 resolution declaring a state of emergency in Marion County due to the after effects of the February 2021 severe winter storm. Under Human Resources, approve a recommendation to update the classification and adjust upward the pay grade for classification number 159, Shelter Manager, and establish and adopt the classification and pay grade for 163, Communication Coordinator. Under Treasurer's Office, approve an order distributing Oregon State Forestry timber revenue in the amount of $591,514.73 as per ORS Chapter 530.
Mr. Chair, I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the consent calendar. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, first action item, under the clerk's office, I saw Bill there. Welcome, Bill. Approve amendment number 4 to the contract for services with Hart InterCivic Incorporated to add $135,000 for a new contract total of $1,169,667.20 for for the purchase of vote tabulation hardware, software licensing, maintenance, and supportive services through June 30th, 2022.
Yes, Commissioners, we found that we needed to increase the amount of the contract.
You want to just, Bill, you want to just introduce yourself for the record? I know it gets pretty
Bill-
routine around here.
Sure. Bill Burgess, Marion County Clerk.
Thank you.
Finance asked us to, or determined that we needed to increase the size of our contract with Hart Intercivic. We've been with Hart Intercivic for our vote tally system since 2011. We had a major upgrade in 2016. And then because of two different grants, a grant through the state and another grant through community technology and civic engagement, offered another grant. We were able to upgrade our vote tally system. We spent about $206,000 to do that. But we did need to upgrade our contract by $135,000 in order to be able to pay them for what we've received. We've upgraded the hardware, the workstations, plus adding another workstation so that we can more swiftly get through counting. We upgraded the scanners that put the ballots through and read the ballots and all. And so this is, so we're coming here asking to increase the budget by $135,000. We're one of the few states that does not require federal certification for our vote tally system, but we do require federal testing through a federally approved test lab, and we've had that done in Oregon. The reason we don't have to have the same type of scrutiny that some states have is because we don't have polling elections. So it doesn't make sense to go through all of that kind of work. We do, though, to keep our systems very secure. We do a lot of work on logic and accuracy testing before an election. It takes a few days to do that as we're setting the election up. And then again, before we start counting ballots, we do another public certification test. And once we're done, we do a third public certification test to make sure that everything is working properly. On top of that, we do audits. The state had our county do a larger audit than most other counties because we were within, on the presidential race, we were closer than any other county. And instead of, like most counties, having to do 3%, we did 10%. And we did very good on the hand recount of that. And then a citizen wanted us to do some more, and so we did another 10,000 ballots, and we were right on the money on that one too. This is a good system. At one time, we looked at going away from this system in 2018 because it was not able to provide what we needed for most efficiently run an election, a primary election, which is our hardest election. And so we went and we looked at another vendor. At the end, we didn't go with that other vendor. We stayed with this one, and we had to actually run 3 simultaneous elections to make it work. Since then, they've upgraded their system to where we can do it all in one election and not have to go through all the maturations that we had to at that time. And so we determined to stay with this vendor. And then when we had the chance for the grant, with our equipment being 5 years old, it made sense to accept those grants and get this upgrade.
Okay.
By taking these grants too, means we don't amortize these particular expenses, which means all the other entities that we charge to elections, especially the districts, they won't have to be paying for this new equipment in the long run.
Sorry.
And if you have any questions about the election itself or anything like that, I suppose this might be a good time to discuss that.
Questions? I don't see a grant in here, right? This isn't a grant.
No, the grant doesn't show here.
Yeah, okay.
The grants were approved earlier.
Right.
There was both a,
So this is utilization of some of that grant money that we approved about 3
right,
months ago.
yes.
Yeah.
This is allowing us to actually
Okay.
pay the bill.
Yep. Any questions for the clerk?
I haven't seen the grant because I wasn't here. So I just have one question. Does the grant have strings attached to it?
Oh, yes. All grants, they certainly tell us what we can spend the money on and what we can't. We have explicit approval from both the grants for exactly the things that we purchased on these grants. One was a CARES grant that we spent about $91,000 on. The other was the CTCL grant, which is we've spent about $177,000 on, and we had a $195,000 grant, and they're going to let us spend the other $18,000 too.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions?
I just have a process point, same thing I've given to other folks as well. We only got the amendment in our packet, so in cases like this, especially with a new commissioner, could you also include the underlying contract as well, so that we can see the original contract and the amendment instead of just the amendment?
Sure, that we can certainly do that, and that's only what I got to. This was actually finance provided this and said, be here to talk about it.
I understand, yeah.
But certainly, if you'd like the underlying contract, we'll be sure to get that each time.
Great. And Commissioner Bethel, just, you know, I had some concerns about the CTCL grant because it was a private grant to a government entity for elections. I don't have any problem with this contract, but just from a principle standpoint, I don't think it's appropriate for private individuals to be giving money to public election offices. I don't think that's an appropriate thing. So I was uncomfortable with that, but the board approved it, and now they're using the money for this contract.
Thanks for letting me know. If you could get me the grant and the contract, I would really like to read it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve amendment number 4 to the contract for services with Hart Intercivic Incorporated to add $135,000 for a new contract total of $1,169,667.20 for the purchase of vote tabulation hardware, software licensing, maintenance, and support services through June 30th, 2022.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you guys very much.
Appreciate your
Really
service.
appreciate it.
Okay. All right, our next item is under Health and Human Services to consider approval of amendment number 1 to intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority to add $804,624 for a new contract total of $2,011,560 to provide choice model services for adults with severe persistent mental illness through December 31st, 2021.
Hi, good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning,
Are you
Cindy.
okay with my mask on?
Can you
Uh,
pull the microphone to you just
oh,
so we
sure.
can hear you clearly?
Yep, is that better? I'm Sydney Nestor. I'm the Behavioral Health Division Director at Marion County Health and Human Services. Here today to talk about our choice contract. So what we're requesting is acceptance of an amendment from Oregon Health Authority for our intergovernmental agreement. The choice contract funds essentially all of the array of services that are non-Medicaid eligible. So there are a lot of things that are included in these dollars. Our previous contract with Oregon Health Authority was an 18-month contract. that ended December 31st of 2020. So the state has just essentially asked or has sent out extensions of that for an additional 12 months. The funding levels didn't change positively or negatively. They're comparable to the previous 18 months. As I mentioned, there are a variety of services and supports that are covered in our choice funds. These funds are specifically for individuals who qualify. Choice is not an acronym, though it's all capital. That's kind of confusing, I think. But anyway, it's a funding model designed by the state that is to support individuals who have discharged from the state hospital. That's the eligibility criteria, essentially. So these dollars are used to pay for things like our exceptional needs care coordinators, who are our staff who assist with transitions for individuals in and out of higher levels of care, pays for peer support and care coordination, supportive housing sites, rental assistance, those types of things. Again, services and supports for these individuals that are not Medicaid reimbursable. Any questions?
I'd like to learn about the choice program.
Sure.
I'm just going to echo what Commissioner Willis said before. There wasn't a lot of information provided, and I did go online trying to see if I could locate specific information, and I was unable to. So it'd be helpful going forward to have some content around the programs that we're asking to fund overall. And I wonder, I guess I have a lot of questions, so I'll follow up with you overall on that particular program. And then the funding that comes from Oregon Health Authority for this particular service, what particular strings are attached to that funding?
All of the funding we receive from the state have a wide variety of reporting requirements.
Okay.
So we do a very robust quarterly reporting to the state on individuals that we've served, how we served them, if they've returned to the hospital, if they are securely housed, what level of housing that they're in. The state says these are the types of array of services that you need to provide, but they do have some language in there. I think, Jane, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's typically a statement thrown in that says as funding allowed. So it lists all the services that should be provided, or could be, is probably more accurate, within the dollars, but it's left to the discretion of the contractor to determine, as funds allow, where we want to prioritize those dollars.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Questions? No. Yeah, Cindy, the only thing I would say is, we heard some testimony from Mrs. Gear this morning. Would that situation that, of course, you need to get more details from her, possibly, is that the type of situation that this funding is used for?
Yeah, I don't know the individual's, status in terms of OHP eligibility and what service may be provided there. But yes, certainly in terms of how the individual's psychiatric needs were described, that is a pretty, I hate to say the word typical, but yes, that would be the types of individuals that these types of service dollars provide assistance for.
Okay, good. So if there's no further questions, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve amendment number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority to add $804,624 for a new contract total of $2,011,560 to provide choice model services for adults with severe persistent mental illness through December 31st, 2021.
I second the motion.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Are we allowed to ask a question, or is it just you?
Just us.
Yeah. But you certainly can email us or call us, and we can chat and put you in touch with Cindy. Okay, we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Our next item up is under information technology. Consider approval of a contract for services with Pictometry International Corporation, in the amount of $217,865 to provide aerial imagery for geographical information system, GIS mapping, for the assessor's office and other county departments through December 2021. Scott, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Scott Emery, Information Technology Department. And this morning, we're bringing forward an item that's a renewal. It's Marion County entered into a multi-year contract with Pictometry International to provide overflight imagery, which is now set to complete its third and final overflight of the county. This is something we usually try to get in every 2 years, a snapshot of the ground imagery for the county so they can actually do a comparative analysis. The imagery is widely used throughout the county, and most recently was a vital tool in aiding the Beach Creek fire emergency effort, where the before and after analysis of the property up in the canyon was assessed. Additionally, the imagery has many uses, including property tax assessment, land use planning and analysis, public works operations and permitting, transportation engineering and capital project planning, building and septic inspections, and a variety of emergency response needs by the Sheriff's Office and Health and Human Services Department. The general public is also able to take advantage of this imagery by accessing one of the many web mapping applications that are published on the county's intranet site. We are seeking approval to execute the final flight of the multi-year agreement for geospatial imagery under the State of Oregon Master Services Agreement number 7539 with Pictometry International at the not-to-exceed amount of $217,865. And with that, I can answer any questions you might have about this request.
I don't have any questions, but I spent some time with our assessor last week, just really kind of learning a fair amount about that department, and we have some really cool tools the public can access that I didn't recognize before being a commissioner. And I think this is another cool tool that isn't just something that provides you guys the ability to do your jobs very well, but also gives the community access to kind of see the geography of our community from a computer screen.
Yeah,
Very cool.
Yeah.
you can actually see burnt out houses.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we have used it so much in an emergency situation, and I think you probably have all been exposed in the emergency operations centers over the last 3 emergencies, all the mapping we do, whether it was from the health care perspective, more recently where all the roadways for public works with the ice storm, it's been kind of ongoing, but it is a tool that it helps those teams mobilize so much quicker. There's close to 500 square miles in the more remote rural areas of Marion County, and to find out where people are at or what their situation is, usually that imagery is that first line tool. They jump right into it and they can start, to try to narrow down where there's problem areas and then actually send out teams as quick as they can.
Yeah, great stuff. Anything?
No, thank you for your
Okay.
work.
Take a
Okay.
motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the contract for services with Pictometry International Corporation in the amount of $217,865 to provide aerial imagery for geographical information system, GIS mapping for the assessor's office and other county departments through December 31, 2021.
I'll second the motion.
Yeah, motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, thanks, Scott. And thanks for getting my computer unlocked this morning. The minor details that keep my life happy, right, or easier. I don't know if it's happy today, but. All right, our next up is under Public Works, and, the famous Joe Fennemer is here. Consider adopting an administrative ordinance granting zone change ZC case number 20-006/J, Concert and Sons LLC. Welcome, Joe.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, this is Joe Fennemore. This item before you today is an application to change the zone from commercial retail to commercial office on a 1.87 acre parcel located in the 400 block of State Street, southeast. The property is currently vacant, and it's located east of Lancaster Drive and south of State Street. Access to the property is provided by a 30-foot wide access easement to Lancaster Drive. Adjacent properties to the north and east along State and Lancaster are in commercial uses and zones. Properties to the south and southeast are primarily multifamily and single-family residential zones and uses. The hearings officer held a public hearing on the application on January 7th, and on January 15th issued a decision approving the request, subject to conditions, which include obtaining building permits and meeting all the development standards of the zone code. The board received the decision and held it for the mandatory appeal period. No appeals were received. The ordinance and findings have been prepared, and notice of adoption was given on February 10th. The ordinance is now set for formal adoption. Options for the board include adopt the ordinance as written, direct staff to prepare a modified ordinance for consideration, or choose not to adopt an ordinance at this time. Staff recommends the board adopt the ordinance as written, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Joe, could you just mention, just review quickly the conditions of this approval? So,
Yeah, they're on the second to the last page.
It's on, yeah.
To obtain all building permits required from building inspection when the property is developed. There's no proposal for development in this request at this time.
Right.
To meet their special standards when you have commercial uses adjacent to residential uses, and those standards have to be met. And you'll see that the condition number 2 talks about screening and landscaping, screening of outdoor storage areas. And the final one is all the other standards in the code that are required, such as number of parking spaces, building setbacks, those kind of issues, height.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Joe?
Yeah, just 'cause I'm curious. Why was this never developed, Joe? What's the story of this piece of property?
I really don't have an answer to that. I just know that it's it doesn't have any frontage on the public road,
Yeah.
so that maybe was an issue. The current owner is not the applicant. The applicant is purchasing the property, from what I understand. The current owner does have the commercial development along Lancaster to the west.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. It's surrounded by a whole bunch of commercial,
And I
property
think the
there.
hearings officer talks about it providing the CO zone as a lesser zone than the existing CR zone, so it provides a little bit of additional buffer to the residential zones.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Questions?
I've read through this and I know we met last week, but it's just so complicated. I don't really understand all of it. So can you just give me a quick synopsis of what it is and what it's going to one more time?
So currently it's CR zone, commercial
Right.
retail, so that stuff, so we have three commercial zones: commercial office, commercial retail, and commercial general. Commercial general is the most intensive, allows the most uses. Commercial retail is the middle area, and the commercial office allows less commercial uses and does allow some residential uses also. So, and I think that's probably the reason for the zone changes. It allows them to mix in residential uses if they choose to.
Right, okay. I remember that conversation. Thank you. Okay, I have no further questions.
So we can get more housing.
Yes. Hopefully.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have to build housing with this, but
No.
they have housing
But
on
it
one
allows
side
it.
and they have commercial on the other.
Yeah.
And this seems like an appropriate zone, given that situation.
Okay. So Commissioner Willis.
My turn?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt administrative ordinance granting zone change, case number 20-006, J. Concert and Sons LLC.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. I was gonna say, don't go too far, but we've got one of your,
Colleagues.
colleagues that's going to, and it is past 9:30, so I will open a public hearing to consider zone change comprehensive plan amendment ZCCP, case number 20-005, Mark D. Stadelli, trustee of the Mark D. Stadelli Family Living Trust. No family in there. Lindsay, welcome.
Good morning,
Good to see you.
Commissioners. For the record, this is Lindsay King, Marion County Planning. The item before you today is an application to change the comprehensive plan designation from primary agriculture to industrial, with the exception to Goal 3, agricultural lands, and to change the zone from exclusive farm use to industrial on a 2-acre property located on Silverton Road, just outside of the city of Silverton. The subject property contains an existing building adjacent property to the east is zoned commercial and developed with an RV park. Properties to the north and south are zoned EFU and in farm use. The property to the west is zoned industrial and contains building and storage area. The hearings officer conducted a public hearing on December 10th of 2020 and on January 12th of 2021 issued a recommendation that the board approve the request. The hearings officer found that the applicant satisfied all the relevant approval criteria for the exception to Goal 3, a comprehensive plan, and a zone change. The applicant is seeking both a comprehensive plan amendment and a zone change. The zone change is dependent upon obtaining a comprehensive plan amendment. Therefore, if the applicant fails to obtain the comprehensive plan amendment, then it cannot obtain the proposed zone change. The property is designated primary agriculture, which means the property is in agricultural land. In order to change the plan and zone designation to allow for the industrial use, the applicant must obtain an exception to statewide Planning Goal 3 agricultural land. There are 3 types of goal exceptions that may be taken: physically developed, irrevocably committed, and reason exceptions. The applicant is seeking a physically developed exception. In order to approve the physically developed exception, it must be established that the parcel is physically developed to the extent that it is no longer available to uses allowed by the applicable goal, or farming in this case. Beginning on page 5 of the recommendation, the hearings officer discussed the Goal 3 exception and concludes that in this instance, criteria is satisfied. The other goals were discussed, and it is concluded that with the exception, the proposal is consistent with the statewide planning goals. The hearings officer then reviewed all of the applicable comprehensive plan policies and zone change criteria and concluded that the policies and criteria are met and recommends approval of the requests. The board has the option of continuing the public hearing, close the hearing and leave the record open, close the hearing and approve, modify or deny the request, or remand the matter back to the hearings officer. I'll be happy to try and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any questions for Lindsay before we hear from the proponents? Not at this time. We may have some afterwards, Lindsay. Thank you. Okay, we have signed up the applicant himself. Mark, did you want just your attorney to speak at this point in time? Okay, and you still have the right to come up and share if you need to. And so your attorney is Margaret. I can't read the last name, Margaret.
It's Ganderville.
Oh, okay. Would you like to introduce yourself for the record? And welcome.
Yes. I'm Margaret Ganderville. I am the attorney for the applicant. My notice address is 250 Church Street.
Hold that microphone. Is you got a green light on it too?
It does.
Okay,
Is
just
that
keep
better?
it close.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just maybe talk a little louder.
yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
How's that?
Better.
Better. My notice address is 250 Church Street Southeast, Salem, Oregon, 97301. We want to thank staff for their time and support on this application, especially Lindsay for doing the presentation when Alyssa's out sick. As outlined by staff, the hearings officer and the hearings officer's recommendation, applicant has met its burden for providing substantial evidence in the record that it has satisfied the mandatory criteria and applicable standards. This area is already heavily parcelized with smaller parcels than are standard in the AFU to the east and the west. And the neighboring properties are already in commercial and industrial uses. There's a small farm to the south, but it doesn't share access onto the highway, which this parcel uses as its access. In the application, there was a letter of support from neighbors and surrounding EFU uses. And we believe that this type of property is the exact type of property that the goal exception, comprehensive plan change, and zone change process is designed to address. Applicant is asking for this change to allow for the logical continuation of the existing development in the surrounding area, and approval of this application will allow for the efficient use of what is currently a substandard parcel in the zone. As included in the application materials, this property was part of a former mill site, and the physical development that has occurred that makes it unavailable for resource use is a high level of fill rock that has been distributed throughout the property. At this point, we're available to answer any questions that you might have or provide any information that you think would be helpful for making your decision today.
Okay, thank you. Questions for
Not yet.
opponents?
I
Okay,
have questions.
go ahead, Commissioner.
I read through the materials and I was, I'm not entirely familiar with your business. What sort of building or buildings do you anticipate developing here?
At
if we
this
grant change?
point, the use will be combined to the existing buildings. In the future, there may be additional maintenance and storage type buildings that are added, but there are current buildings on the property that will be modified for the proposed use.
What, most of you're driving trucks and materials in and out of the land, right? Would it be like a big warehouse? Would it be a big, if you're thinking of building buildings on it, what would it look like?
It would be,
Can he come over there?
We need,
Could you
Mark,
come-
we need you to come
I-
over and just introduce yourself for the record, and
Join the conversation.
we knew we'd get you in here somehow, huh? We love it when citizens show up and tell us how to do government work, yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome, especially business people.
I'm Mark Stadley. So my business is primarily servicing, installing water systems for wells. I'm trying to expand, and so this would be a great spot to add. Probably it'd be storage. I don't know if you'd call it a warehouse, but additional storage for equipment, stock, so forth like that.
Okay.
Maybe another shop.
Do you manufacture your own equipment?
No.
No.
Uh-uh.
Okay, so it'd mostly be storage. The shop would be for fixing vehicles or?
Well, I mean, we do fabricate, wellhead discharges for irrigation pumps, stuff like that. I mean, it's minimal. It's mainly for storage, equipment, vehicles, just supplies,
How many-
inventory.
I'm sorry, how many folks do you have that do that sort of work currently? The manufacturing work?
It's just myself and one employee,
Oh, all right.
yeah.
Okay. Fabulous. Thank you. Those are all my questions, Mr. Chair.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Mark. Is your well business, you work with agricultural people as well as residential customers, or? I'm just curious, this has nothing to do with the case.
Yes, I do. We do some work for cities. Mainly it's, our biggest business is the residential and the ag business.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for your service to Marion County residents and citizens. And
I imagine he's gonna be busy.
yeah, probably a few frozen wellheads out there. I remember.
Well, they're busted now.
Not to mention the fire recovery.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell the story afterwards.
Sorry.
We are in a public hearing, but I remember my first experience with my wellhead 20 years ago when it was 5 degrees out. Okay, so any further questions for the proponents? All right, thank you very much. We'll bring Lindsay back up, and just in case we have any questions and at this time.
I just want to acknowledge that I think these are the first folks that have attended a session with us that read that paper on the table and then is wiping the station. It's not county staff, so kudos to you guys.
Fantastic. Well, and they got to hear the case numbers. Were you here when we were talking about the case numbers of COVID? Good, so, yeah.
We're close.
So people ask us all the time, what do county commissioners do? And I just say we commission things. You can see the broad range of activities we cover. Any questions for Lindsay? Or Lindsay, do you have anything else you want to add?
I don't.
Okay, any questions for her?
questions.
Council, anything you want to point out? No? Okay, pretty straightforward. So if there's no further questions, Commissioner Willis, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing and
Approve this? Sure.
whatever you want to do.
If I may, I'd just like to make a couple comments first, and maybe Lindsay, you can comment on this if you like. I don't love situations like this where you have basically industrial uses way out in the farm zone. But it seems like in Marion County, that's just sort of we discover these. And this certainly is a case where it is what it is because the mill was out there, you know? And so I think I'm encouraged that I think this use is going to be actually pretty compatible with the surrounding farms. And because it's pinned between two, a commercial and industrial parcel, it just seems like this is the obvious thing to do here, is to make it fit with the surrounding land. But there is we run into these every once in a while where I'm just like, whose idea was this to put this industrial use way out, you know, over here? So, but I think this really is the best use, given that it's already being used this way, and I don't see it ever going back to being a farm, so.
Staff would agree. I mean, it's a 2-acre parcel is extremely difficult to farm, and especially if somebody wanted to develop into a primary farm dwelling or something like that, you're not going to gross the minimum amount on a 2-acre parcel. So, and especially with the mill previously being there, as you said, and the soils and such. So it is a good fit. It's a more of an infill area that we're just correcting.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that and for making it kind of one contiguous use in that area. And it's a great use. I mean, there's no question that most of our residents out in the rural areas have wells, and so I think they'll find that very compatible. So I just want to put those comments on the record.
Okay, yeah, you know, we do everything we can to protect the EFU farmland, but this is one of those cases when I know it's pretty close into Silverton too. It's not too far. I mean, it's right up against almost the city limits there too, so. Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chair, do you have any questions? Okay. Mr. Chair, I would move that we close the public hearing and approve the request to grant the zone change comprehensive plan amendment ZCCP case number 20-005, Mark D. Steadily, trustee of the Mark D. Steadily Living Trust.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay. So we'll close the public hearing. We're still in board session. Thank you, staff and Mark. If you will read the calendar. Who's going to read the calendar?
Me.
Okay.
And I just, for the record, want to show that this is 2 full pages of a calendar, and I'm willingly taking this on. We're very busy.
I will say, you get to read it, because since you've been here, the calendar's gotten longer and longer and longer. I don't think it's your fault, but
I think it might be my fault.
it might have to do with 3 emergencies all going on at the same time.
You know, I'm proudly going to take ownership of the fact that we are doing all the things we need to be doing to be in our community, and this calendar is proof. So, for the week of February 17th through February 24th, the Board of Commissioners calendar, which is Wednesday to Wednesday. Today, 2/17 is Wednesday, and our board session began at 9 a.m. And then later today, starting at 11 o'clock, we have a Board of Commissioners policy meeting located in the Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street, Northeast. And then at 12:30 today, we have the Mid-Valley Jobs Council, which is a virtual meeting. And then at 3 p.m. today, we have a Board of Commissioners Chief Administrative Officers meeting located in the Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. And then at 3:15, we have a public hearing testimony for OR at Senate Bill 465, which is virtual. I thought that was rescheduled.
That was rescheduled. We
So-
did not have that today.
Yeah, so correction, that is rescheduled for next week. And then today, Wednesday, the 17th at 4 p.m., we have a virtual FEMA briefing for local officials. Tomorrow afternoon, 2:18, Health and Human Services Policy Group meeting located on the Commissioner's Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. Then on Friday, 2/19 at 8:30 a.m., we have a Marion County Community Leaders Roundtable with Congressman Kurt Schrader, which is virtual. And then on Friday at 11 a.m., we have the Association of Oregon Counties weekly COVID-19 conference call, which is virtual. And Friday at 3 p.m., the Board of Commissioners Chief Administrative Officers meeting, Commissioner's Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. And then on Monday, 2/22, we have calendar review at 8:30, located in the Commissioner's Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. And then at 9 a.m. on Monday, we have management update, location Commissioner's Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. And then on Monday at 11 o'clock, we have a Board of Commissioners Chief Administrative Officers meeting, executive session if needed pursuant to ORS 192.6602A D, B, D, E, F, H, I, to begin immediately after management update, location Commissioner's Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. And then on Monday at 2 o'clock, we have the Santiam Canyon Fire Recovery Check-In, which is virtual. On Monday at 5:30, local elected officials on wildfire recovery public testimony hearing for the legislature, which is virtual. And then on Tuesday, 2/23 at 8:30, we have work session, public safety quarterly update, location Commissioner's Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. Tuesday at 1:30, Marion County Housing Authority regular meeting, location Commissioner's Boardroom, 5th floor of this building. And on Tuesday at 3 o'clock, we have a Health and Human Services Policy Group meeting, location Commissioner's Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. And then on Wednesday, 2/24 at 9 o'clock, we're back in this room for board session, the Senate Hearing Room, 1st floor, 555 Court Street. And on Wednesday, 2/24 at 11 o'clock, we have a Board of Commissioners Policy meeting, location Commissioner's Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. And on 2/24 at noon, we have the SEDCOR Executive Council meeting, which is a virtual meeting. And on Wednesday at 4 o'clock, we have a FEMA briefing for local officials, which is virtual. And then on 2/24, Wednesday at 5:30, local elected officials on wildfire recovery testify public hearing, which is virtual. And we did have scheduled for this Saturday, which I believe was the 20th, a Santiam Canyon wildfire check-in up the canyon, both in Detroit and Gates. And due to the recent weather and the storm and the piles of snow, we're rescheduling that. So folks that were planning to attend, please stay tuned for when the weather permits for us to get back up there. And in the meantime, if you have questions or comments or needs, please reach out to the commissioners. Our emails are located on our website.
That's all?
I mean, I could add more if you want.
So, do you want to, anybody want to share?
I do.
Go
I
ahead.
have notes while you're signing.
No, keep going.
So, this was a crazy couple of days. I have a tree on my house. I live in North Kaiser. Maple tree crashed down, broke lots of branches. But we were so lucky. We've had power this whole time. So, I don't know what's better, the tree on the house or having power. But I want to just say a couple of things. One, I'm very concerned about the number of Marion County residents that are being exposed to carbon monoxide poisoning. Over the weekend, there was a significant issue in the Northern County area where 7 members of a family were rushed to the hospital because they were found unconscious due to carbon monoxide poisoning. And yesterday, I had a check-in with Kaiser Fire District, who has a significant influx in calls to people who are ill, and it's due to carbon monoxide poisoning. And I think what folks may not recognize is that even if you don't have those dangerous heating elements or cooking elements inside your home, if you have a generator outside your home and there's an airflow into your home where that exhaust fume can come inside, and you don't have a carbon monoxide monitor, you're likely being exposed to carbon monoxide poisoning. The generators have information on them that say how many feet they should be away from certain access points. And of course, a lot of folks are limited in that reach due to a variety of reasons, but it's really, really important that you pay attention to that. I did see an image yesterday on social media that I immediately responded to where somebody had a propane heater in their house and they had posted a photo of it. And that's just terrifying. You just don't know when you're really being impacted by that. You don't really feel the effects of it until it potentially could be too late. So please be informed. We know that it's necessary to be warm and fed, but it's also necessary to be alive. And we want folks to try to get through that. And if you're still without power, there are warming centers across Marion County. 2 significant ones. There's one at Salem Evangelical Church in North Salem and one at St. Ed's Church in Kaiser, and they are open. They'll be open until they are not needed. Blankets are being provided, prepackaged snacks are provided, charging stations are provided. All COVID measures are in place, so it's a safe place to go and get warm for a little bit, and potentially connect with some resources if need be. So that information is located on our Marion County Facebook page, and probably by now also on our website, although I haven't confirmed that. And yeah, it was a crazy weekend, guys.
Sure was. Yeah, sure was. We have a couple trees down in our yard. House was cold for a couple of nights, but power came back on, thank God. But there's a lot of people that still don't have power, and I know our public work folks are working really, really hard to support PGE and Pacific Power to move as quickly as possible, closing roads and that sort of thing. And they have been working hard, but I think this is something where it sort of exposes some of the weaknesses in the system. You know, we can't have a situation where people are without power for a week or 10 days. So hopefully, as we move forward, we can talk with our utilities and learn from them what they're going to put in place to prevent this from happening in the future.
Yeah, you know, I know we started the moment with the meeting with a moment of silence, and you know, I think you mentioned the poison. In fact, that was one of the things the Aurora Fire Department, they responded to that deal in Woodburn with Woodburn, saying that they were getting a lot of calls. Everywhere I went yesterday, I was just checking in to see about wellness checks. In fact, we did Sergeant Wilkinson and I got a call. We went all the way up to, it's like North Marion, north of Hubbard there on 99 and into a trailer court. A lady's aunt from Arizona couldn't get a hold of her, and you know, the deputy. It's interesting to watch those guys and how they knock on doors and in situations. And he left his card with a note. Finally, she called back, and he was able to relay back to the aunt who was concerned about her, you know, that she was safe and all that. So there's all those examples. I think I get accused sometimes of always looking at the cup half full versus half empty. Just think how nice it was. Yesterday at 4:30 when I got in my car, it was 50 degrees out. And had we not had this warm up, and I think Texas is experiencing it where they're still under ice. We have people that don't have power. However, you know, we've had nice weather after this storm that's allowing the power crews to get out there and be able to deal with this as quickly as possible. And I keep going back to thinking, again, how do I prepare myself to help myself? And this is kind of selfish, but also my neighbors, right? To make sure I have water on hand, to make sure if I have a generator, that I have it hooked up and I'm running it properly and I have all those safety things. Because when things like this happen, the communities themselves and our neighbors are the ones that help each other survive. We just don't have enough public safety firemen and police and sheriff's office to get around and do it. It's a huge disaster. And like the wildfire, when you know people said, well, I didn't get a call, and I say, well, you got out because either you woke up or your neighbors woke you up or somebody. And this is where I think our community can come together. And you know, the CERT teams that we have, is it CERT? Yeah, right? Build those CERT teams up in your neighborhood, in your community, and say who's got the supplies, who's got generators, and helping those that don't. And then the other thing, just the infrastructure that I saw everybody, all the cities that I visited yesterday, their water was working and their sewer was working. It took them a little while to get going, but they had their infrastructure back up, just no water. But they had some of them had generators that they had worked on. Some of them had to borrow generators. So I think this is good lessons for us to continue to put emphasis on emergency management preparation.
And it's
And-
stuff you don't necessarily think about. I know over the weekend,
Not urgent, but important.
Yeah.
Now it's urgent.
and the idea that, many of our cities had potentially sewer system failures or water system failures. And I know that's something that Brian Nicholas and our public works folks and the EOC all weekend, they were troubleshooting solutions for cities to make sure their water systems and their sewer systems didn't fail. And so it's a credit to them, like you said, that all of our cities, their water and sewer systems are back up and running, because that wasn't the case on Saturday.
I want to make a mention of two things. One, of course, our team has been working throughout the weekend and the last few days for the community. Obviously, Public Works, our emergency management team, our administrators, everybody rallied immediately to get out there and try to provide as much service to our community as possible. The things that I saw over the weekend that were really impressive is the life and safety component that Marion County, but mostly our local community, our local cities really take seriously and really jump into action with the door-to-door check of neighbors, the coming out immediately to help remove debris from other people's property. I saw multiple chainsaws going in various yards as I was out and about on Saturday delivering necessary items. But for Marion County's response, I think that I've seen some unfortunate comments on social media, which is where everybody goes to complain. But we really have quickly lifted access to resources. And I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that I'm a commissioner, but people seem to answer the phone when I call. This happened in the wildfires as well. And we had 4 cities on Saturday open up debris collection sites right away. I think my point to this is that people want to respond to an emergency in the whatever way they possibly can. And in this situation, it was helping your neighbors, and then what do we do with that debris? And I know Staten was actually the very first community that opened up a local park for debris collection without even knowing what they were going to do with it. And then the city of Kaiser was next. And I live in Kaiser, so I was able to go over there and witness it. And there's a significant mound of debris, of woody debris, at one of our local Little League parks that the county decided to help dispose of through waiving fees for cities to have access to take that debris, to have it ground up and reused for compost later. But also, Commissioner Willis and I went on a tour, I feel like 2 weeks ago, of our juvenile programs, which is located off of Center Street. And I had no idea the resources that are provided for our community through the juvenile department. There's a work program that youth who are kind of working through some challenges access, and one of them is a wood program. So different vendors in Marion County deliver trees to be cut up, and then they turn that back around into fuel. And yesterday, Jan and I talked to Troy, who's our director of juvenile, and today, the juvenile department will be providing, at a very low cost, firewood to the community. There's going to be a sign-up sheet that will go live, because we have, I think, anywhere between 6 to 8 cords of wood that's available. And we do have a lot of residents that are out of power, and they're relying on wood stoves to keep warm. And there's no resources right now because they've all been depleted. And so I thought that was a really great option for our community. And it just takes, government always has some system that has to be turned on or modified in an emergency. And Troy yesterday said it would be up this morning. So that's a resource, and it will be out on our Facebook page and also our website for folks to have access to in case you need heat. There's not enough for everyone, so please only get what you think you need, so that way it can go as far as possible. And then on a happy note, today is my husband's birthday.
Hey, happy birthday.
He's at work, he's a plumber, and he's been very busy. now
Okay.
more so busy because of the ice storm and all the things that have been going on. But I just want to take a minute and acknowledge him and tell him happy birthday.
Does he watch?
He does watch.
Why, he's working?
I mean, I don't know. I think right now
Listens.
he's under a house,
Yeah.
but he makes
Frozen-
comments back
frozen
to me
pipes.
about, I can't believe you said that, or did that really happen? He keeps me in line. If folks think that I don't have that monitor, I do.
He's very good help.
I did not. I mean, you know, I don't know that I would appreciate it if he's very young.
Well, I know that our public works went up and cleaned out Idana in Detroit.
Yeah.
So that the sheriff could get in and do calls. I don't know how many people.
They plowed it.
Yeah, I don't know how many people are living in Idana. Well, Idana's pretty well, they didn't have a lot of damage from the wildfire. But Detroit, I don't know how many people are living in trailers up there and, you know, in very, you know, unlike winter conditions. So that's, you know, just on top of that, we all know that the snow's gonna slow down the cleanup and the recovery up there, but, so, and then, I don't know, it's just amazing times. So we just gotta keep working hard, doing everything we can, to help people. Yeah, all right. We are adjourned.
True, it's the dance we know the moves.
It's time for Local Roots,